Granules in the gutters now count as damage. That's according to the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, or IBHS. Pea-sized hail is about to total your insured's roof. No bruising, no leaks, no punctures, no actual damage that you can see or touch. Just granular loss, and that's now being argued as grounds for a full replacement. This isn't a roofer making up some nonsense theory to get you to buy the roof. There's a peer-reviewed IBHS study published in Frontiers and Materials backing up this argument, and the plaintiff's bar is already running with it. Law firms are telling homeowners to use it to challenge denials, and public adjusters are building case files around it right now. Here's the part that stings. IBHS isn't some plaintiff-friendly outfit. It was created by the insurance industry, it's funded by the insurance industry, and it exists to help the insurance industry reduce losses. The carriers built a rake and then they just kind of stepped on it. And if this actually becomes the law of the land, everybody loses. Premiums go up, deductibles definitely going to go up. Carriers will stop writing asphalt shingle roofs in hail country. The homeowner who fought to get a few missing granules paid for is now the homeowner who can't get coverage at all. HAAG Engineering reached out to me on this one because they saw it coming and they wrote a position paper pushing back. I got Steve Smith on the call. He's the director of their lab with almost 3 decades of experience, and he walks us through exactly what the study says, what it doesn't say, why this matters for the whole industry, and how to hold your ground when this report lands in your lap. Starting now.
In a nutshell, it's saying, hey, small hail damages roofs, and you know what the result of that's going to be. You know, people in the industry who are trying to sell roofs, they're going to grab a hold of these papers and say, look, even IBHS is saying that subsevere hail, 3/4-inch hail is damaging roofs. And so they're using it as a building block for the foundation of a forensic position that you had hail, it was 3/4-inch, there are no bruises, but the roof is now damaged, loss of resilience, possible future damage because of this loss of resilience. Therefore, the roof needs to be replaced. So we took a look at it. I'm like, there's some problems with their testing, their methodology that I personally have. But secondly, it never actually stated that this loss of resilience is a basis for roof repairs, a basis for roof replacements. It's just basically saying small hail can knock off some granules, and that might have a consequence. But obviously, the papers are being misused. Not only roofers, public adjusters, engineers who work for plaintiffs' attorneys are relying on it as building block or basis for their opinions. And I don't think that is what it was intended for. And if it is what it was intended for, it's very, very weak, especially with the issues I have with the with their testing methodology. What
do you think about this? If you're getting value from this conversation with Steve, click that subscribe button and leave a comment telling us your thoughts. Okay, back to me and Steve. For anybody watching who may not be fully up to speed on composition shingle construction, maybe just give us a real brief primer on what granules are, what their purpose is for, and how what we're talking about in relation to hail.
Sure. They give you the color and the color patterns that make a roof attractive, asphalt shingle roof attractive to look at. They provide traction, so when roofers are installing the shingles, it's not a slippery roof surface, so it helps in that respect. They are a wearing surface that offers some physical abrasion resistance to the shingles. They provide some level of fire resistance, and they also provide protection for the asphalt from weathering, UV, rain erosion, stuff like that. I don't discount the importance of granules. What I discount is that if a few granules get knocked off by some small hail, I don't think that's a catastrophic event that requires a roof replacement. if that's the case, asphalt shingles have no business being a roofing product. If a few granules being knocked off makes them a non-functional product.
Yeah, because, obviously lots of things hit the roof, and you have freeze and thaw cycles, rain, birds and animals, like, raccoons or, squirrels or whatever running across the roof. Anybody that gets up to do repairs, install a satellite dish, they're going to walk on it. And I mean, would I be out of bounds or out of line to say that some of those things could have at least as much impact, if not more, than like, half inch, 3/4 inch, light hailstorm hitting it and knocking a few granules loose?
There's a lot of normal anticipated granule loss that occurs early on in the life of a roof. If you're in this industry, you've probably heard the term hitchhiker granule. Well, what the heck is a hitchhiker granule? Well, the better granules are those that get full encasement into the asphalt. They're well embedded, they're well bonded to the shingle, and those granules are going to stay put for many, many, many years with respect to the life of the shingle. There are other granules that are stuck to the asphalt, but just barely. Maybe they're just touching the asphalt, or they're dug in just a little bit. They don't get the full embedment. There are other granules that aren't even touching the asphalt. They're just held between two granules by friction. So these hitchhiker granules shed from the roof rather quickly. The first couple of years, rainstorms, your thermal expansion and contraction, and voila, you have a gutter full of granules. A small hailstorm can come through. When I say small hailstorm, 3/4 inch or so hail might knock off a few granules. It might not knock off any granules. Who knows? But we don't normally see, at least on a roof that's in decent shape, we don't see a bunch of spots of missing granules from hail, from small hail, I should say. If you've ever been in a hailstorm where you've got half inch or 3/4 inch hail, it's not uncommon to get a lot of it. Like each tab of a 3-tab shingle could easily get, 10, 20, 30, 40 strikes. Well, when that storm goes by, you don't get 10, 30, 40 bare spots. You might get a couple of granules knocked off, but that's part of their purpose. As a well-wear surface, they're going to take those impacts, and a few of them might shed away. It doesn't mean the roof needs to be repaired, and it doesn't mean the roof needs to be replaced.
Yeah, and so maybe it's the other side of the coin. Why do we pay for, when you have hail that is big enough to cause conventional, accepted damage that we traditionally pay for? Why are we doing that? Like why? Because you can stand in the front yard at a lot of houses and maybe see a few black spots or nothing from the ground. What's the point of replacing the roof at all for any kind of hail damage?
You're going to have 2 layers of shingle, and for a small amount, you're going to have a 3rd layer on that headlap. And so you have that built-in redundancy in that shingle. Well, if a large hailstone hits the weather exposure and bruises it, that's going to be a fracture in the reinforcement, a fracture through the asphalt, which is your water shedding layer, and that one particular shingle at that one particular location loses its water shedding. The roof doesn't, just that one spot on that one shingle. Well, the redundancy is that shingle underneath it picks up that water and pushes it back onto the roof. So with a hail bruise, you don't have a leak per se. And I'm not referring to 3-inch hail that goes right through all layers. I'm saying just that outer layer.
Right.
You're not losing your water shedding. You're losing a localized spot of redundancy. And it does need to be addressed. And you can address that with a shingle repair. Unless you've got many thousands of these bruises, and then it becomes an economic decision. Say, look, there's too many bruises to make localized repairs. Sometimes it might cost more money to make a to repair thousands of bruises than just to replace the roof. But yeah, it's that little piece of redundancy at that one spot that you're losing when you get a hail bruise.
One thing I kind of learned in my career as an adjuster was that the policy, you know, people will complain about the insurance policies because they feel like they're not fair or whatever. But I found that there's some kind of underlying logic behind a lot of the things that they explicitly don't pay for. For example, tree hits the house, causes damage to the house. There's, you know, that opens the door on some policies to pay for taking the branch off of the house so that it can be repaired and then some haul off or whatever. But it doesn't pay for, you know, it could be a 300-foot tall tree. If it lands in the yard and doesn't hit anything, sorry, you know, we can't pay for that. And when I thought about it, after having a lot of conversations where people were not super duper happy about that, if you did pay for that, well, where's the line, right? So the yard's full of leaves, you know, an enterprising PA or contractor could make the argument that, well, you know, we need to do, and then you have fall cleanup as part of your homeowner's insurance, right? And it seems like this might be kind of the same kind of thing. It's subjective. I mean, you can tear open a bag of shingles and there's loose granules in that. Yeah, I just wonder, I think we can probably speculate that the insurance industry is, you know, if this becomes something that's a bigger deal, probably will dig their heels in and be like, no, we're not. Just because of open the door an inch, somebody's going to try and kick it all the way open, right? But I'm curious what you guys think about the possibility of this becoming like something that, if I'm going to Minneapolis to work a hailstorm where it's small hail, am I going to be seeing that report shoved in my face on every single roof I get on? Sure. Versus what this contractor is saying?
Well, I've long thought that insurance policies need better language to lay out what's covered and what's not covered. I mean, full disclosure, I've never been an adjuster. I'm not licensed as an adjuster. I'm just an engineer who looks at things and makes a decision on what makes sense technically. I also think I don't want to discount asphalt shingles as a roof covering. I think they're miraculous. They're a miraculous roof covering. They provide a low-cost roof covering that most people in this country take advantage of. Like, look, man, I don't want to spend $100,000 on my roof when I can buy one for $12,000. And what is an asphalt shingle? It's a thin piece of fiberglass covered in asphalt. The top of that is covered in granules, and it works. It works very well. It sheds water. It's easy to install. It's not expensive. But if this paper or other, like you said, roofer theories, you know, take hold, and they make it to where there's a handful of granules that are somehow discovered to be missing after a small hailstorm, it's going to make asphalt shingles an obsolete product that insurance companies can no longer cover. So to me, there needs to be a level of realism and acceptance of what's really going on here. I have seen some miraculously old asphalt shingle roofs in my day. I've been in this almost 3 decades now. And those old shingles aren't leaking. I've seen some, not many, but a couple, where when you drive up to the house, it looks like there's snow on the roof because all of the granules are gone and all of the asphalt on top of the reinforcement is weathered away, and you can see the reinforcement from the street. It's just a white roof, and it's not leaking. Well, why wouldn't it leak if it's lost its water shedding layer? Well, because there's another water shedding layer on the bottom of that shingle, and there's that redundant shingle underneath. So you're not leaking, even though you're not worried about missing granules. You've got exposed felt, and the product is still working. Now, as an engineer, if you ask me if that roof needs to be replaced, that roof has seen its better days. It's time for a new roof. but it doesn't mean it's leaking.
Right. Or that it's, the insurance company's responsibility to pay for that. So is there any position or anything coming out of the manufacturing side of things? And what do those, when they say it's a 30-year warranted shingle, I mean, what does that even mean? Does like GEF or any of those guys have anything to say about this?
The manufacturer seems to look at warranties differently than obviously the homeowners. The homeowners hear, 50-year warranty. They process in their brains, this roof is going to last me 50 years. The manufacturer is not stating that the roof is going to last 50 years. They're saying, hey, in 50 years, this shingle is not going to be defective. And if it is defective, we'll take care of that under the warranty. So there's a big difference between expected lifespan of a roof and the warranty level. When I first came in, 3-tab shingles were 20-year shingles and laminateds were 25 or 30. Now you see the 3-tabs at 30 and the laminateds at lifetime when, maybe there's been some modifications in manufacturing, but not double or anything like that.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So, Stephen, how about a little bit of background on who you are at and what you do at HAAG and sort of like what HAAG does for the industry as a whole?
I am an anomaly. I was a kid in high school, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I joined the Navy and I went into the nuclear power program, and all of the other students, or most of them in the nuclear power program, were college engineering dropouts. They couldn't afford school or dropped out for whatever reason. And all they ever talked about was, man, I'm going back to college. This is bad. I need to get my butt back in school. And so when I got out, HAAG hired me to be a lab technician. So I work in the kind of the lab behind me, or one of our older laboratories, doing the hail testing, shooting ice balls, desaturating shingles, testing tiles, all those things. And after doing that for a while, I figured I'd be better off as an engineer than a lab technician. So I kept working in the lab full time. Went to college part-time, it took me almost 7 years to get my 4-year degree. And then after I got the degree, HAAG put me out in the field and I started inspecting roofs, primarily inspecting roofs. And I always found it interesting that what I learned in the laboratory as a tech carried over a lot into the field. And a lot of my field inspections gave me better appreciation for the laboratory. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship between the field engineer and the roofing lab, because there's a lot of crossover. And about, maybe 6 years ago, I took over the lab. So I'm now the lab director, still do field inspections, but now I'm more involved in doing some research. And lo and behold, I get some IBHS papers that need some attention. So I looked into those, and we haven't really talked about the paper very much. I don't know if you wanted to go into some of the issues I had with their testing.
Yeah, if you want to. Absolutely. I think this is, just the part alone where if this is something that tries to become widespread, the unintended consequences of that is that the insurance companies are just going to say, well, listen, it looks like you're putting garbage on your roof, so we're not going to insure that at all, which is they're certainly capable of doing in their policies, which is fascinating. And you're right. I think they are, they're a lot tougher than people give them credit for, at least, people who want to get them bought give them credit for anyway. But yeah, I would be curious to hear going a little bit more deep on, what your sort of specific concerns are with that paper.
Basic outline of the testing that they performed is they had, I think, 6 or 7 different manufacturers' profiles of shingles. But the way they tested it is they tested brand new shingles. They also had shingles that they stored, I don't know if they said in a conditioned environment or in a warehouse, but definitely indoors. And then they had shingles that they had weathered out in their facility out in the field or whatever. And they tested the new shingles with 2-inch hailstones. They tested, after storing shingles for a year in that indoor facility, they built the panels and then stored the panels for a year. They tested those with what they call sub-severe hail, which is kind of interesting because it was actually a mix of 3/4 inch and 1 inch. And 1 inch is considered severe, but for the sake of this paper, they called that sub-severe. They also tested the weathered panels after 1 year with their sub-severe hail. And quite a bit of it. I don't remember exactly how many hits they did, but it was a lot. Then they waited another year and they tested the stored shingles again with sub-severe. They tested another year of weathering on the shingles with sub-severe. Then after that, they hit the stored shingles and the weathered shingles with the 2-inch hail. Then they compared the amount of granule loss from the 2-inch hail, new, 2 years stored, 2 years weathered, and they put these granule loss factors or damage factors in place because, certain shingles had more granule loss. The weathered ones had more granule loss than the stored ones, which had more granule loss than the new ones. But one of my problems with that is there was a 2-inch hailstone that they were testing them with. What happens when a 2-inch hailstone hits an asphalt shingle? Usually causes a rupture. Yeah. If you own a shingle with a rupture, you don't care about missing granules. You care about a hole in your shingle. So I never understood why that was their characteristic point that they were trying to put off, is that when you get hit by 2-inch hail, you get more granule loss because of the weathering. The other thing is they never hit the brand new shingles with the sub-severe hail. And they never hit shingles that were weathered without sub-severe hail, just weathering. So they didn't have a control on the front end or on the back end. They lumped the weathering and the sub-severe hail testing in one data point, then drew conclusions on what happens when 2-inch hail hits a roof. So I didn't find that as being a well planned out testing protocol, because you can't draw absolute conclusions without having sufficient control numbers to work with. And then to bolster your opinion based on a 2-inch hailstone that's going to rupture a roof, I just don't find that very meaningful. And of course, it was taking advantage of, it's the paper's being misused. I'm like, if you dive into it, it doesn't have the strength that you think it does, in my opinion.
Gotcha. So as the kids would say, it's a little sus.
Yeah, it's a little sus. I've never said that on camera, but yes, it's a little sus.
Right on. Anything else that you could think of that you want to add, or is there?
I do. I want to add one. I want to add one thing. I'm not here to criticize IBHS. I know they do a lot of testing. They have a great facility. I don't know what their motivations were on these papers. I can only suspect their motivations were to help the, maybe model some of the underwriting, which is pretty clear in the first paper, not, in my opinion, not as clear in the second paper. But I don't think they set out to destroy the reputation of asphalt shingles. But in effect, that's what they did, and that's kind of why we put our position paper out there, not necessarily to defend asphalt shingles, but enough to say, look, homeowners, if you get a sub-severe hailstorm and it knocks off a couple of granules, that's okay. It's not going to make your roof wear out. Your roof's, you're not going to have, a waterfall in your living room the next time it rains.
If somebody who's in insurance world, you guys have a lot of resources for adjusters and people who are interested in this kind of forensic engineering stuff, who may be, professionally interested in it. Where can they go to get more information and to find these resources, and what kind of resources do you guys have?
Yeah, certainly. We have a website, HAAGengineering.com. We have a link on the website to papers that we've produced. I really recommend going to the education part of our website. That's where they can get some books or resources or whatnot. But also you can sign up for our monthly newsletter. Our monthly newsletter always has some sales and things, but they also have an actual blog where we take a topic, one of our engineers will write about it. It's usually just anywhere from a half a page to maybe 2 or 3 pages, so it's not a really in-depth read, but usually it's going to be based on a topic that is near and dear to our hearts, and maybe something that needs to be revisited or something new that's come up. And so it's we don't bombard your email with a bunch of emails, but we just give you one a month. Hey, here's something you want to read if you want to.
And if you want to know how to get started as an independent property adjuster from scratch, check out this video right here. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a great storm.